but there's 20 persons online. And here we are something like 40 registered participants for this meeting. So the ERA workshop, we think or believe, pretty sure that it's the 8th conference we have workshop. We touched on workplaces, regulation and measurements of workplaces, measuring techniques, health issues, protocols. Yeah. And this time we thought that we should have a long topic of looking ahead, radon in sustainable low energy built environment. It's kind of broad subject. We will have 3 speakers, and then we will have a coffee break, and then have this World Cafe. So for those who have visited in Vienna, knows what it's all about. Jose will go through it more in detail when it comes to that. But it's more interactive. I would say it's the most interactive part of the conference. Yes. But I think we can start because we have good time. So looking ahead, radon in sustainable low energy built environment. There was the first speaker, Zornitza Daraktchieva. Good enough? Yeah, good enough. And it's the UK Health Security Agency is the name now.
Now is the name.
Yeah. So,
recently.
I will not say the prior names.
Yeah, I'll probably mention prior names.
So, what impact do energy efficiency measures and modern construction techniques have on indoor radon levels? Welcome. Should we have this one? Do you want that one? Yes. Yeah. Do you want to start here?
Yeah. Otherwise, I cannot. Okay. Hello. My talk today will discuss the impact of energy efficiency measures and modern construction techniques on indoor radon levels in the UK. First, to determine the energy efficiency is just a term used to describe the process of reducing the amount of energy required to provide services as heating, lighting, cooling. And existing buildings can be made more energy efficient by introducing so-called retrofit measures to reduce the energy needed to power them. These are some typical retrofit measures used in the UK, like wall lofty insulation, double glazing, heating system upgrade, and draft proofing. Why we're interested of these upgrades? Because building regulations requirement in UK changed, especially on insulation. There is a parameter called U value that measures energy loss. Is in units of watt per meter square, and estimates how much energy is lost for every 1 degree of Celsius difference between the 2 sides of a material. Here on this table are given some components for new homes, like wall, ceiling, floor, window, and door. And the changes of the U values from 1970 to 2019. If you look at the wall U value requirements in 1970, 1.6, and nowadays is 0.8, which is 10 times decrease of U value. The same for ceiling, floor. For window and door, it's not as dramatic, it's about 4 times decrease. Okay, so decrease of energy losses from different components indicates an increase of insulation and air tightness of columns. A little bit about radon. I will not talk about radon in general because I believe that all of you know about radon. But how does radon get into houses? There is a temperature difference between indoors and outdoors. Indoors is warmer, which creates a smaller pressure indoors than outdoors. This small negative pressure difference is the driving mechanism for radon. And radon-rich soil gas enter buildings through multiple routes. And you can see the soil is the main source of radon, but it can go through any routes. There are some other sources as well, like water supply, gas supply, building materials, outdoor air, but the main source is again so underneath the buildings. Okay, so how this affects the indoor environment? Increased air tightness, is this affecting the indoor radon? For example, recently, the UK Committee on Climate Change recommended net zero greenhouse gases by 2050. And the reduction of these greenhouse gases from buildings involves air tightening insulation. There is a modeling study, which reference is given here, which found that an increase of air tightness would increase the average indoor radon concentration by about 57%. It was estimated from this study that the housing energy efficiency strategy for England will reduce the ventilation rates, increase the radon levels on a population-wide basis. This will have a direct impact on 22.3 million dwellings. So the whole UK housing stock is 30 million, so it's about 74% of the housing stock. So actually it's a big impact, but this is a modeling study. Let's see if a real case scenario, which is a study that UK Health Security Agency is now the current name of the organization that Radon Group is part. Previous names were Public Health England, Health Protection Agency, and National Radiological Protection Board, which we tend to change our names in 4 to 5 years in our time. Different government, different ideas. So after COVID, we became UK Health Security Agency, but previous study was Public Health England, University College London study. So the study looked at the effect of energy efficiency measures on indoor radon. And it was a pilot study between us and UCL. We looked at the existing data in so-called HEAT database, which is Home Energy Efficiency Database and the UK National Radon Database. So HEAT included about 16.4 million UK dwellings, quite big database. Our database is also quite big, not as much, but still big. Include measurements in 525,000 UK homes. So we match both data sets to see there are any properties that are in both data sets. And we found 73,550 post-retrofit homes there. We use the annual average radon concentrations as parameters for comparison. We calculate annual average radon concentrations by measurements in 2 occupied rooms called bedrooms and living rooms. We apply the occupancy factors and you apply seasonal correction factor. That's why it's a little bit complicated, this annual average radon concentration for us is, but this is what we use. And we found that there is association between the radon and dwelling characteristic and energy efficiency measures. These are the details of the study. Okay, so the result that I'm presenting here is part of another study. The goal of the study was to investigate how energy efficiency measures and house characteristics affect the vertical distribution in the radon inside dwellings. In this study, we used 395,720 UK homes. For every of these homes, we have information, house type, house characteristic, energy efficiency measures. We use closed passive solid state nuclear track detectors measurements, and the radon concentrations were measured simultaneously in 2 occupied rooms at the same time simultaneously. So the rooms were situated on different stories. Living rooms were situated downstairs while bedrooms were upstairs. Okay, this study covers broadly UK. It's not representative, but because of the size of the sample, everything that I will say today is relevant, and it is obviously because of the statistics will have an impact. It is biased towards high radon areas because historically these areas were most tested. Methodology. For each dwelling, the measured radon concentrations in both the living room and bedroom were used without seasonal correction factors. So just the bare measurements. The outdoor radon was subtracted. It's 4 becquerels per cubic meters UK-wide. Why we subtract the outdoor radon? Because it's an additive parameter, and in this way we improve the log normality of the distribution. The values that were negative or 0 due to subtraction of the outdoor radon were disregarded. So data analysis, there is a ratio that we define the ratio living room to bedroom radon concentration. This was calculated for each dwelling. And then the distributions of all ratios this was found to be a log normal. And here is the QQ plot, normal theoretical quantile, logarithm of radon. The log normality, 95% confidence interval is given here with these 2 dashed lines. You see that it's more or less linear here. There's, of course, some deviations here and there. If you have in one of the room quite small measurements, this creates, but 95% I think is very good. The average living room to bedroom ratio of the whole data set expressed with geometric mean because it's log normal distribution was found to be 1.6. If we convert this living room to bedroom, reverse it, to bedroom to living room ratio, it is about 63%. I'm saying this because for the study, it was used the opposite. So-called bedroom to living room ratio. It was calculated for each data set, and this was used to study the difference in the level of radon in the upper floor bedrooms with respect to the downstairs living rooms. Okay, in this table, you can see the energy efficiency types of measures. Second column is the number of houses, and this is the bedroom to living room ratio in percentage. And I just would like to draw your attention to the fact that we're not talking about small samples. The smallest sample that we have is 530 houses, the biggest 124,000 houses. And also we are using as the baseline for comparison another sample which there isn't any recorded energy efficiency measure. So houses without any measures, it's 22,800. Again, the control sample is also very big. Double glazing full is here. Full double glazing was found to have quite an impact on obviously indoor radon distribution. The other impact was found for wall and loft distribution and draft proofing as well. So houses with double glazing, wall loft insulation have much higher radon levels in the upstairs bedrooms than those without any energy efficiency measure, at least recorded. Okay, bedroom to living room ratio here was used to study the ground floor type and house type. So there are 3 ground floor types that there are information in the database. Solid, suspended, mixed. It was found that the suspended floor has quite higher radon levels in the upstairs bedrooms. And the house type, for house types, detached houses, again. So detached houses and those with suspended floors get higher radon levels in their upstairs bedrooms. And again, look at actually the sample size. It's really, although it's not representative, the conclusions are quite strong. The next thing which we looked at in the study was how old the buildings are. And by year of building, this is the plot, this is the ratio in percentage, and these are year of buildings. You can see that up to, let's say, 1992, with the exception of this period, the building regulations and were produce more or less stable ratios of below, let's say 60. But since then, 1993, there was quite significant increase in the ratio, which means that in the upstairs bedrooms will have higher radon levels. So better insulated, after this period, and more airtight homes had higher radon levels in their upstairs bedrooms. And houses built after 1993 had higher radon levels in their upstairs bedroom. This is the conclusion that we can make from this. The results of this study are published in Journal of Radiological Protection, and you can look at it if you're interested. So conclusions from this study. Modern construction techniques and energy efficiency measures increased the airtightness of buildings and affected the vertical distribution of indoor radon. Results indicated that the increased airtightness, improved insulation, led to an increase of radon levels in the upstairs bedrooms. Radon levels are found to be higher in houses that are detached, with suspended floors, with double glazing, wall loft insulation built more recently. In the UK, people spend on average more time in their bedroom than in the living area. And the increase of radon levels in the upstairs bedroom could lead to an increase of the exposure to indoor radon. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the audience? Rigga?
Do we have any houses with some type of mechanical ventilation system?
No, no.
The suspended foundations that you were talking about,
Yeah.
is that a crawl space with a wood floor?
I don't have it. I'm not
Okay,
a building engineer, but it is suspended floors. It's UK. You can look at specification in UK to see what it is.
yeah.
For the average person testing their home in the UK, where do you recommend that they place the detector?
We have two occupied rooms, one living area, the other bedroom. So 2 rooms. We are always monitoring 2 rooms. Not recommended. We're doing this.
Any more? So I have a question also.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
the results is showing that it could be a problem ahead.
It is a
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
No, don't.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is a problem.
It will be a bigger problem.
Yeah, it could
Yeah.
be, yeah.
So are there any plans to handle this? I mean, that one recommend when one has been doing this retrofitting or energy efficiency of the house, that one should do radon measurements and.
One way around is so-called positive ventilation.
Yeah, that's
So
a solution.
yeah, it's a solution.
It's more, do you?
Like remediation.
Yeah,
Well, of course, yeah. I think that first measurements, and then obviously the radon levels after retrofit were higher.
Yeah. So it's a
remediation.
recommendation to measure.
Yeah, we cannot impose
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and also there is a tendency, obviously, that new built houses are even more airtight. But we have a policy in so-called radon-affected areas.
Yeah.
We recommend different installed measures, or like some percent.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
We have that as a topic also on the World Cafe. This, if you need to do some measures to increase radon levels, is that agreeing with the energy efficiency? I mean, does it cost more energy to do? No. Yeah.
Question from
Online. Okay, Bernard. Should I read it also?
you can read it.
Okay.
Yeah,
To me?
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is the more important effect of thermal renovation? More radon indoors or more important ratio between stairs?
This study looked at the ratio, but obviously this means that the air exchange is reduced. Reduced air exchange means that the radon will stay longer, especially in upstairs bedroom. For newer houses, because it's airtight, there is no the leaking through the doors and windows will be less. For that reason, the radon levels will be higher, will stay higher there. unless something is done, obviously. So the source itself, it will change the amount of radon to ingress because it will be warmer. If indoors is warmer, the temperature difference between indoors and outdoors will be higher, which means that more radon will come into the house, and it will stay there longer because the air exchange will be lower. I'm not building engineer, I just read about things, but it seems to me logical. I'm physicist, so just a good explanation why it's happening. And all the houses, because they leak more radon, but also more radon, more fresh air from outside could get into the car portion of the house. So in this way, it is diluted more. The air is diluted, and there is less radon. This is one explanation as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Bernard, for the first online question. Yeah, as I said, we will discuss this during the World Cafe also, these different measures, how to handle this problem.
Yes,
Also.
it's quite serious, yeah.
The next speaker is Ingvild Finne from DSA. The title is The Effect of the New Building Regulations in Norway on Indoor Radon in Radon-Prone Municipalities. And the reason we put it here in this topic is that it might be, if you're building new houses energy efficient, as with the reasons, the risks we already mentioned, is that one might look at what we have done in Norway with membranes preventing radon from coming into the house. So,
Yeah, but it should be done previously.
yeah, and that's what we're going to
Okay.
speak about now. So that's the reason. So it fits into this energy concept also. Do you have the presentation there?
Yeah.
Yeah. No. So you want this?
Yes.
Yes.
And some water, maybe.
Some water also.
Yes.
Which is that? Mhm.
Morning, everyone. Very nice to see you. Have probably got emails from me, all of you, organizing when I organized this conference. Maybe I can also use this one. Yes. Okay. Yes, as Per already mentioned, the title of my presentation is the effect of new building regulations in Norway on indoor radon in radon-prone municipalities. We have already done some surveys on the new regulations, but this is a quite new survey we are talking about here. Yeah, focused on radon-prone areas. And actually we say that all Norway is radon, but we are here looking at some especially radon-prone areas. I'm starting with the same subject as Sori did.
By coincidence.
Yeah, she told us about the U value. So you know now that the U value is the energy lost for every 1 degree Celsius between the two sides of a square meter of material. And you see the table here. The differences in U values for ceiling, floor, outer wall, and windows during, how is this working? No, this is, yeah, I can use this. So you can see here the older regulations here and the newer the newer ones up here. So, and you see the U values are decreasing by the years. And up here you see data sets we are looking at. We did a survey in 2008, and we looked at homes built in 2000 to 2007, and they are all new houses. And in the data set from 2020, we looked at homes built in 2012 to 2019. And if we look at this data set, we see that it was built they were built according to the, I call it the technical requirements, Tech 97. And you see the U values here. And the new data set, in the new data set, the homes were built according to Tech 10 and Tech 17. We see also that you see the arrow over there, the preventive radon measure was introduced with the Tech 10. And just briefly looking into the Tech 10 and Tech 17 buildings, it says that buildings shall be designed and constructed with radon prevention measures to limit the inflow of radon from the ground. And it says that radon concentrations in indoor air shall not exceed 200 becquerels per cubic meter. So our reference level for new buildings in Norway is 200. And it also says that buildings designed for constant occupancy, where people stay, shall not exceed, shall have a radon barrier towards the ground, a membrane. And it also says that building designed for constant occupancy shall be designed with suitable measures in the building land that can be activated when the concentration of radon in the indoor air exceeds 100. And and I have some examples to show you. This is an illustration from the Norwegian Building Authority. And you see here that we have this perforated drainage piping here in the gravel beyond the hose. And we have here a vent pipe all the way. And if they measure radon concentrations here above 100, this sump should be set into, should be activated with a fan. This is one way to do it. Another way is a more simple way to do it. It's just to put this pipe stub. You see here the concrete floor, some insulation maybe. I'm not an engineer, a building engineer here either. This is how it might look. Here you see the radon membrane and maybe some more insulation and the gravel in the ground. So actually, if you measure about 100 becquerels in the house, the seal, this seal will be uncapped and the piping will be extended, and it's possible to put on a fan. Yes. Then a little bit about ventilation. In addition to targeted preventive radon measures, energy saving and ventilation requirements were strengthened in the 2010 building regulations. And with strengthened requirements to insulation and air tightness of buildings, balanced ventilation was pointed out as the best and most practical means to ensure sufficient air exchange. So in Norway, this is normal with ventilation systems in new homes. Just briefly showing you the different ventilation systems. We have this natural ventilation, which is the oldest form of ventilation and is common in homes built before the 1970s. And then mechanical exhaust was adapted in new homes at the beginning of the 70s. So you see here is just open vents, and the air is going through the hose and passing the hose and going out the other vents. For mechanical exhaust ventilation, a fan is actually dragging the air out of the home. So here's open vents. And of course, this mechanical exhaust ventilation make under pressure, negative pressure in the home, and it's actually a radon problem. Yeah, and especially when it's cold and the people living here are closing the vents, and the under pressure is even higher. Then we come to balanced ventilation. This is by far the most common form of ventilation in new homes. It ensures a good indoor climate in all rooms and is energy saving. A little bit more about this balanced ventilation. I don't think it's that common in Europe. No, maybe more in the north where it's cold. Balanced ventilation is air supply and air exhaust. The air supply and the air exhaust are approximately equal. So hence it's not increasing the under pressure in the building, but the negative pressure in the building. And balanced ventilation is also increasing the air exchange rate, which is diluting the radon concentration in the home. So it's actually good for radon. Then heat recovery. 70 to 90% of the heat from the old air is being transferred to the fresh air. It's actually, yeah. So the heat recovery is going on here. Yeah, so, and then the fresh air is distributed evenly and preheated in the home. So a balanced ventilation is hence an energy efficient measure. And actually in Norway, you may get up to 1,000 euros in support from the authorities if you retrofit your home by installing balanced ventilation. Then our survey. These are the municipalities in our survey. Back in 2000, we did a survey looking at 140 municipalities in Norway. And we found some municipalities with a very high proportion of homes where we measured more than 200 becquerels per cubic meter. So you can see here from these municipalities from about 12 to 51. These are not all the highest measurements, but they are municipalities from all over Norway, different climate zones and different geology. So there are more municipalities with high radon concentrations. Also, Ullensvang municipality, this is the municipality where we are going to have this excursion. It was also included, and as I maybe not easy for all of you to see, but a survey back in the 90s showed that in this village Kinsarvik, the average yearly mean was more than 4,000 becquerels per cubic meter in the homes, so very high. So what happened to the new houses in Kinsarvik? You will see what happens. This is the table with the results, a lot of numbers, but if we focus on the mean first, and also on the top here, you see where is the, here is, here, all the municipalities together. So we can see actually from 2008 to 2020, the radon concentration is halved. If you look at the different municipalities, we see that most of them got lower radon concentrations in 2020, but actually we have a couple like Grane and Skjåk, they have higher radon concentrations. Ullensvang, a little bit lower concentration. And we also had some in 2020. We had some where they had to answer questionnaires and they didn't fill in for the municipality. We had some not known. If we focus here on the proportion of homes measuring radon concentrations above 200, we can see here that it dropped from 40% to 6%. So it's quite good, I would say. And we see that some municipalities, they have 0 homes above or measurements above 200. And if you look at Ullensvang, they got 0 as the result. So it's very good. Okay, more results here. Here we see a table from our paper, which is published in JERA, the Journal of European Radon Association. And Halvard, my colleague Halvard Bolnes is the corresponding author. And this is the result from our statistical model on log transformed results. And we see here the parameter estimates that are negative. Yeah, we see the floor. We are looking at the floor and balanced ventilation. So here is one floor up. You see the result here, and balanced ventilation compared to not balanced ventilation, all other kind of ventilation. Measure means that they are in retrofit measures or radon measures or preventive radon measures, all kind of measures. And also crawl space, we are looking into crawl space, homes with crawl space. And also we have been looking at the survey in 2020 compared to the 2002 survey. So what we see here is that the parameter estimate, the parameter estimates that are negative and statistical significant, as we can see here, they are showing a reducing effect of radon concentrations. So we see that, for instance, this balanced ventilation got the highest number. So it might seem that it's the best measure, but the standard error is quite high. So actually these measures are maybe not that different. But all this is actually lowering the radon concentration. And this is also a little bit interesting because we could call this the general tech effect. What is the effect of the new technical requirements or regulations? This is the effect of tech when we are taking account of the other predictor variables here. So there's something more. We see that there's something more, but we don't know what it is. It could be, for instance, in Norway, we are heating our homes with the wood and the stoves. You know, when you are firing in the stove, it's dragging air into the stove and making this under pressure again. In new homes, you have to give fresh air directly into this stove. So it's no longer making this under pressure. So that might be one of the reasons we have this negative effect that you don't really know what it is. Or maybe it's just a tightening of the home. Yeah, okay. We also have some estimates here for the municipalities, but I think this is more important. We should focus on the proportion above 200. As I said, this is quite good results. We have the proportion of homes above 200 is really reduced, but according to the regulation, they should all be below 200. So there is still more work to be done. And what could be done? We know from the questionnaires the homeowners had to answer that many do not measure their home. Really, they do not know how high the radon concentration is in their home. And hence they are not activating the radon sump. So there's really a lot, and actually a lot of new homeowners do not know about it, that they have this radon sump. So there has to be, yeah, we have to work on the information to the homeowners that they should measure and they should activate the radon sump. So my last slide, some discussion. Our surveys show that the overall average radon concentration in new built homes in the radon-prone municipalities are both halved, and it's significant. Balanced ventilation with heat recovery appears to be one of several good preventive measures against radon. And we see that the proportion of measurements above 200 becquerels per cubic meter dropped from 40% to 6%, but still it is high in some municipalities. And from the regulations, I would say that homes built according to the new regulations should already today be sustainable and low energy homes with low radon concentrations, even in radon prone areas. So the regulations are there, but we have to work on information, yeah, especially on radon then to fulfill the requirements. Yeah, as I say here, but there is still work that needs to be done in order for new homes to meet the requirements with regard to radon concentrations. And more homes should be measured and radon sumps put into effect. So this is all from me. Thank you for your attention. Yeah.
Any questions?
I saw a slide, 2 slides describing radon membranes, and 1 slide describing perforated radon hoses. And why don't we combine radon hose together with the radon membrane instead? Because I assume that if you put in a radon perforated radon hose system below the radon membrane directly, you have also security if you have a problem. Instead of building these pipes, I cannot see the pipes you're building. I cannot see a reason for that.
It is combined. You should both have this the membrane,
Yes.
and the system that could be put into active, an active radon zone.
Yeah, I saw that, but it was on 2 different slides, but
Yeah, but it's just the 2 different ways of fulfilling the requirements. Yes, you can do it both ways. It depends on the companies.
another question I have you done any studies between the efficiency of sump pumps compared to balance vent systems? Because I saw in the end there that you say that the balanced ventilation system is very efficient, but also it costs between 10,000 and 12,000 euro per complete system in a house. And the radon sump system perhaps costs 3,000 to 4,000 euros.
Yeah.
And I understand that the Norwegian government is giving a contribution independent of the radon for balanced vent system that has nothing to do with radon.
No.
Actually.
No.
Still, have you in Norway considered to make any radon contribution for radon mitigation at all from the government?
DSA would support that, but it's.
What about politicians?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
Not at the moment.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Trygve?
Do you know how it's quite a large investment in this ventilation system? How much energy do we save? How long time does it take to pay off? I mean, you also have this energy saving part of it. So it's also an interesting question. How much energy do we save? Have you some numbers on that? How many years?
No, sorry, I did not have the numbers now. But the balanced ventilation, it's also, I mean, it's energy saving, but also it's making your air nice. I mean, so it's not only energy saving, it's actually making good climate, indoor climate. Yeah.
I had a question about the thickness of the membrane. Is there a recommended millimeter?
Yes, it is, but I do not remember that. No, sorry.
Peter?
Physical question which goes to Ingvild and to Joy likewise. Maybe it's a stupid question, but there's something which seemingly I didn't understand it. If you tighten a building, you insulate it, then you reduce the stack effect, also because there's the advective flow flux triggered by the stack effect is reduced. Now we assume, I think we know, that the main entry path is from the ground by advection.
Yes.
So if you reduce the advective flux, you would expect a lower, but apparently this effect is smaller than the opposite effect, which means that the accumulation by better insulation. But has this been quantified somehow, these two competing effects?
Yes, the effect of convection is due to the under pressure between indoors and outdoors temperature difference. But then the stack effect is convection inside the house.
Yes, but this
There are two
convection.
different mechanisms.
Yes, but this convection triggers the sucking of radon out of the ground into the basement or into the.
No, not the convection. But yeah, convection is just the warmer air because it's a light and it's go up, and when it's cool, it's going down.
Yes, but this convective stack effect flux exerts a pressure on the foundation, which would trigger the advective entrance from the ground.
What I know from the literature is just the advection is caused by the under pressure because of, as I said, temperature difference and wind direction as well. There are some other factors. Another open air, they have very good models.
Yeah, I do not have the answer, but as I showed you, we have some, maybe the air tightening effect is here. I don't know.
One short.
Yeah, very short. It's just a curiosity. So you mentioned about balanced ventilation, but I get you focus mostly on homes. But what about multifamily buildings? Do they have this block of apartments also balanced ventilation?
Yes.
Okay. There is one more question.
Oh, one there. Okay. Help me for a second.
Yes. It's again Bernard.
Oh, Bernard again.
Hello, Bernard. Yeah.
Can you read it? What is the more important effect of thermal? No, it's the last one. Last one. You already have a mandatory regulation for building prevention in new buildings before 2008. How do you explain the amelioration of performance in preventive measures in new buildings between the two examples?
No, the mandatory regulation was introduced in 2010. Yeah, so the data set from 2008 is from the old, before the introduction of preventive measure, radon measures. And then how do you explain that? Yeah, so that's what's explaining the reduced radon concentrations in the last data set. It's actually the preventive radon measures, but also other measures like the ventilation system, maybe the tightening of the building. Yeah, so I don't know, is it the answer of the question?
We hope so.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bernard.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the last presentation for this before coffee break is the Canadian low energy focused construction techniques and their effects on radon levels. And Pam Warkentin, yes, from CARST and the C-NRPP.
Good, thank you. Well, while Jose sets things up, I have some treats. I thought I'd do a couple trivia questions before I get started, and it'll be a little bit irrelevant. So I have some tea from northern Quebec, so there's sort of local things that I'll hand out first. My first question is, our extreme temperatures. Anybody know what our temperature ranges are in Canada? Online you can answer, but unfortunately I don't have any treats for you. It's just for pride. But anybody here take a guess?
Between 30 and minus 50.
Ah, yes, pretty good. That's pretty close.
Okay, I'll share with the others.
I say, and you'll see in my slide, we talk about minus 40 to plus 40. But last summer we had a heat event, as you probably are all familiar with that term now, where we had the max temperature up to 48. And really in our north, we can get down to minus 50. But as a cute thing, we always talk about minus 40 to plus 40 because it's quite extreme. Okay, my next question, our regions in Canada. Does anybody know what we call our regional separations across the country and maybe how many we have? Anybody?
Provinces or territories?
Aha, yes. He gets a little bit of, he knows a little bit because he's come to visit us. And so I'll tell you all, please come and visit us. Canada actually is quite a bit like Norway. I took a train across the country yesterday and thought, man, this landscape is very similar to what we have in Canada as well. But then, of course, we are a very broad country. So it does depend on where you land in Canada. But we have the Maritimes, we have the mountains, and then we have the prairies, which is where I'm from. So I come from the very middle of the country, but then the south, of course, because we're all very concentrated around our southern border. And I will also say we are very different from our south cousin. You may think we're very similar, but I will always say that we're kind of different. So.
Yes, perfect. Yeah.
All right, thanks. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the low energy focused construction techniques in Canada. And a little bit of the theoretical effect on radon levels, and I'll explain that as I go through. I'm hitting the wrong button, obviously. Which button do I press? Yeah, okay. No, all right. How about this? It looks like it's frozen or something. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Good. All right. So as I talked about, our temperature ranges are quite extreme. And so it's really important in our techniques that we build our homes to be able to meet both extreme requirements. Cold in the summer, or sorry, we want to cool our houses in the summer against the heat, and we want to heat our homes in the winter against the cold. And so this does depend on which province and which area you are in Canada. For instance, for me, this is a reality. So I actually, in the middle of our country, in the winter, we get down to -40, and this is much of what it looks like for me in the winter. And then in the summer, we get up to almost -40. So -38 is about a high temperature for me in the winter, but different parts of Canada, some are more moderate. So this isn't true of everywhere, but in general, this is kind of how our building techniques want to consider. And so very similar to what you've heard about some of the other building techniques in other countries, we often have concrete foundation. So we have basements. We really love our basements in Canada. It helps us. We have lots of room, but still we like to maximize our room in our houses. Our houses are typically single family homes, although we're seeing more increase now. In fact, multi-unit buildings or multi-generational homes are growing now in popularity, but still most of our homes are fairly single family homes, wood frame construction, concrete basements, although again, there are more techniques coming in with membranes. So it's a crawl space and then a membrane with a wood floor, depending on the area. And they are well sealed because we do want to protect against those extreme temperatures. So this is a typical house. I went down my street and took a picture of a house being built in my neighborhood. And then also when we look at the low energy concept, the heat really is our primary, and I'll talk a little bit about this in a minute, but and so typically our heat now in new construction is forced air, so either gas or electric. In fact, 60% of our homes in Canada are being heated by forced air. But we do also have electric baseboards, a boiler. Some of the older homes that were built years ago may still have a boiler. And then there's regions of the country, especially in some of our rural areas, but there's also our Quebec, our French province, often the homes are wood burning stoves. And so we do have zones where they're still using wood burning. And this is a typical basement. And in fact, we have once or twice a year, there's new home builders, they try and get you to come in and take a look at their homes. They want to sell you their house. So I usually go in and I take a look at the building construction. I go right down to the basement and take a look at really how well they're building the homes and what they're doing. And really, I'm looking at this radon pipe here. So similar to what is in Norway, we also have a rough-in in Canada. And so obviously it doesn't have anything to do with low energy, but we do have the building in our national building code. We do have our requirements for radon control. So it doesn't do anything to remove the radon, but we're required to build with granular layers of gravel underneath the concrete foundation. And then we have our requirements of the poly membrane. And then this radon pipe, and the same concept, it can have a perforated pipe under the poly membrane, or it could just be stuck into the ground. It should be properly sealed and capped. And it also should be labeled, which is, this one is not very well labeled. But it doesn't always look like this. Usually it's buried under the stairs. Usually when I go into a basement, it's tucked off somewhere where nobody else can see it in here. But that's sort of the radon control measures that are built into the home. So now, as I mentioned, energy is a prime focus of our building codes because we are trying to reduce the amount of energy. And heat really accounts for the major source of energy use in our homes. And so when we're going into building codes and we're looking at increasing regulations for building codes, they are focused on our heat, try to reduce the amount of heat. So that means tightening insulation in the building construction and more efficient heat. but I think what's also really important is to look at the motivation of why that's important in Canada. Because in Canada, we actually have a lot of hydroelectricity. So it's renewable energy. It impacted the environment when they put it in because it sort of destroyed the local environment. But now that it's in, it's renewable. And so it really has a fairly low lasting environmental impact because it's renewable. But we still are very focused on our reducing energy and reducing the climate impact. And some of the motivations are for good global citizens. We do agree that we should be reducing our climate impact on our home, as we build our homes. But in my opinion, there's a couple other motivations. One is marketing. Right now, it's a big thing. And so our home builders are marketing themselves as energy efficient because they want people to buy, it's popular. Our politicians are paying attention to the people who want to see things more energy efficiency, and that's their motivation for their political policy changes and those sorts of things. And then another big thing is we sell a lot of our energy to our southern neighbor. And so there's a financial benefit as well. If our utilities tend to be provincial, and so they tend to be government owned, there is some differences, but they have this strong motivation. So you can see a lot of our energy. So it does go both ways. So we are buying some energy in some areas from the US, but primarily we are selling it. And so that is also a strong motivation for some of our low energy choices. And so when that's your motivation, it does color how some of these policies come in. And so that's the new construction techniques, but then also existing construction. We have grants for existing construction. So the government has just put in $2.6 billion or committed $2.6 billion for across the country for homeowners to add energy saving measures into the home. And so things like increasing insulation, replacing windows, sealing cracks and gaps, and then switching out their heating to heat pumps. And so those are some of the measures that they've put in because really their focus is on natural resources. So it's not a health big focus, as you'll notice, it's protecting our natural resources. All right, so generally this is sort of the type of advertising that they do, and so improving airtight construction or air sealing, obviously, more efficient products as well, better insulation, and that really goes above the ground as well as below the ground, and then windows as well that are airtight. And then our building codes are focused on, so there is an energy code, and this hasn't been fully adopted. This is sort of it's in transition or in development, but there, in addition to our building code, we also have an energy code where they are trying to bring in increasing regulations, and they're trying to get the building code to adopt more energy efficiency measures. And so we really have a target of 2030 of having a net zero build by 2030. And so those are some other things that are coming in the policy side. But we don't have any research yet on radon. And so we've actually been learning from all of you, and Dr. Anne-Marie Nichols here, and she's been doing some summary of some of the research that we've seen from your countries that we've been trying to explain to our country and explain how some of these building things are going to affect your building design features are going to affect the radon. So right now we just have the theoretical. And so as you mentioned, there's this natural pressure plane. And so typically beneath the pressure plane, if you've got a leak in your wall or in the house, it's going to draw air in, right? And so beneath the pressure plane, the air is going to come in. Above the pressure plane, the air is going to go out. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about this, and this is thanks to Colin. Colin was at the Swiss conference, I think, so some of you may have met him. He's one of our trainers in Canada. But so let's look at this a little bit. So if you seal gaps to the outside above the pressure plane, theoretically, that should reduce the difference of the change of pressure, right? So it's not allowing air to escape. So it also shouldn't be allowing air to come in. So theoretically, it should be reducing the amount of radon that's coming into the home, right? So that possibly could have a positive impact on radon levels. And then now, but if you're focused on below the pressure plane and you're sealing the gaps and adding more insulation to the area below the pressure plane, then this actually is reducing the amount of air that is coming in, which is reducing the amount of dilution, natural dilution that's happening. And so theoretically, this is going to be increasing the radon levels. Okay, so this is the theoretical. And then the other thing that is important to note, but really in our energy efficiency measures, nobody pays attention to this, to the ground, because they're focused on energy. They're not focused on the soil gases or the health of the home. But theoretically, if you seal this area and you're preventing the gases from coming in, then you should be reducing the radon level. And so this is the theoretical. But the other problem that we have in Canada is that the houses are not built to the theoretical, right? So we have problems with supply chain, we have problems with workforces, we have problems with motivations of the builders who are just trying to get the house sold. They're more focused on what the consumer wants than following all the regulations. So there certainly is good building codes and there's good integrity, and we do have regulations, we have permits, and we have building officials who are checking all these things. But what we're finding is that this is the biggest problem in Canada. They're not doing simple things, like we have a big gap right here. So they're supposed to have a poly membrane that goes across this gap. It's not being properly installed. So we have a large gap that's coming in and air is coming directly in here. And so that's a significant part of our radon source. The other thing is that I showed you that stub pipe, we're also seeing it not properly sealed. So it's usually got a cap on it, although there has been situations where it's not even capped, but it's sometimes not even sealed properly. And then it maybe sometimes has written radon on it, but it's not properly labeled. And so we have heard about people using it for plumbing because they have no idea what it is, which is a huge, a bigger cost to mitigate than it would have been if it was used for radon. But so people don't really know, and we have a low awareness, and we'll talk a little bit about that in our future presentations, but we're still trying to get people to understand radon. So they're not testing their homes like they should be. And so we're not also able to so the other side of this is that the energy efficiency people don't want us to talk about the fact that there could be a health impact. And generally people who are motivated energy efficiency because they want to be a good global citizen, they do seem to recognize this, and they do see the issues with radon and other health. I mean, it's not just radon, right? There's VOCs, there's other things that are coming as we seal up our homes that are creating an unhealthy environment within our homes. And they recognize that, but the bureaucracy and all the channels of decision and all the hoops that they need to jump through is not allowing them to adapt their programs for this. And so we get a lot of pushback, and we presented to some of our energy efficiency groups, and we're getting mixed response from them because they're too busy just trying to give people money to reduce energy in their home to even think about radon. So we haven't been able to do any actual radon research yet. And then the other side of this, so just quickly to touch on radon mitigation. So in Canada, we have a process of diagnostics. So when we go in and install a radon mitigation system, we actually go in and do a series of tests. And so we want to make sure that this system is actually properly designed for the house. And so this fan is properly designed, sized for what we need in the home. And we just want to reverse, right, the flow of the air coming from the soil. So it's just large enough flow of air to reverse at the worst pressure. So our really coldest season. And so one of the things that there's been pushback on radon mitigation, one, because they see it as adding another energy source. And so there's a little bit of pushback on adding an active radon mitigation system to the home. And so what we've been trying to explain is actually, not only do we properly size, so if it's installed properly, it's the lowest, wattage of fan, and we can install it quite with quite a low energy use. But the other thing we've noticed is that we're actually improving some of the energy efficiency measures in the home because it's reducing some of the moisture that's coming in from the soil. So a home that hasn't got a proper membrane, we're actually seeing quite a bit of moisture sort of whisking in through the basement. And when people have a radon mitigation system installed, we're actually hearing from them that we're reducing the humidity level in their home, the comfort of their home, the smells that they've got from some of the other subsoil things or gases that are coming through. And so we do need to do a better job of marketing ourselves with this low energy environment as well. But we've been really focused on health, which is harder to market. So in conclusion, we do have a lot of energy going towards heating our homes. And so that is a strong focus of our low energy measures. But it's really impacted by the motivation on why somebody is reducing the low energy impact. And then a policy is really impacted by public opinion. And so they recognize radon as an issue, but we're not having a strong impact on our politicians. And depending on the actions and the combinations of actions in our new construction, they may increase or they may decrease it. And I haven't even talked about how we actually use our homes. And that's the other thing, is that people are flipping out these low energy things and then putting in really big exhaust fans and things like that. And they may have an HRV system, but they might not be maintaining it. So there's all sorts of other complications once the house is built as well. And so really testing for radon should be included after new construction. So once somebody occupies it and after energy retrofits, but we're still getting that message through. And then when radon mitigation is installed, it really needs to be done in a way that limits the energy requirements. And we also need to be advertising that to encourage pickup among our public in the country. All right, that's it.
Very much.
Yes.
I think we have time for one or two questions. You had one there.
One of the first slides where piping was middle of the room where it takes place, and it's capped and sealed, and why it's middle of the room, and why it's ended in the room and capped, why it's not in the corner and goes outside already.
Yeah.
And if there is a radon problem, what you're going to do? You're going to extend or start drilling through the ceiling down to the floors or to the walls. It's very strange. Can you explain a little bit?
Yeah, so this isn't necessarily ideal, although this isn't the worst I've seen. So this isn't, I didn't take a picture because this is best case scenario. I took a picture because this is what's happening. Yeah, and so in reality, this is a fairly large basement. So there's lots of living area here. And what we really would like to see is yeah, exactly what you're saying. In the corner, so it's close. And so what we actually do in our mitigation is we can go up and out the side. So in Canada, we're okay with the sidewall discharge. So it can go up and out the side of the home.
Why it's not done already? Why it's ended in the room?
Oh, I'm a believer. Yes, I totally agree with you. It should be done. This is all that's required, is it has to be. And the builders have no clue why they're putting this in. And so they also have no clue what is going to happen next. So all they know is they need to put this 12-inch pipe in somewhere in the home.
Okay.
Yeah, we're also finding it in the middle of the wall. So we have to go and find it. Sometimes, mostly it's under the stairs. Yeah, yeah. Nope, I'm with you. Yes, it's very strange. Yes, which is why I go into these houses and inspect them every once in a while and take pictures and show the builders, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you for asking the question, everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And clarity to make sure you know we're not crazy. Yeah.
Another question, do you have any standard at all regarding number of suction points?
In an existing home, yes. So primarily we would like one
Per square meter, meaning?
Yes. So there is in one of our standards, but ideally we actually would like just one suction point in our home. Yeah. And this is as part of our design process, we actually go in, and I can talk more about this when we have more time. But that we actually have a scientific design process that when we install a radon mitigation system to ensure that we're pulling from the full footprint of the home. And so these design techniques that I talked about in construction help us with this. So this granular layer that is below the slab, it really does help with the communication. And then the poly, if we have a really well-sealed foundation, that also helps so that we only need one pickup point. And we actually are drilling holes to test the air pressure at the full footprint of the home. And we can actually show that we're getting this pressure change from one pickup spot. So yeah, I'd love to talk more about mitigation techniques.
You had a picture before and the suction pit was not showing that. They had the picture of the suction.
Yeah. Oops, right there. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a simplified drawing.
Yes.
But yeah, and so what we actually do, if we go into a home and we're having a hard time getting pickup at the far end of the slab, we'll dig this suction pit larger. And if we create a larger suction pit, we're actually seeing that we're getting a further draw a larger draw from across our footprint of our of the slab. And the other thing that sometimes we'll do is we'll drill an extra hole and sort of drill an extra suction pit over here. We'll seal up the hole, so we'll still only have one actual pickup point. So most of our homes, it's not entirely true. Like sometimes there'll be like a barrier down below the slab, and we have to have 2 pickup points there. But most of our homes are a full 1 slab on.
Why don't you do a radon pulse system instead? I mean, you dig down radon pulses instead, because that's much more effective.
A radon house system?
Yeah, I mean, you have a tubing system below the ground plate.
Yes.
That's very, very cheap to make.
Yes.
And much more effective.
Yeah.
I think this is a stupid solution.
Well, so this is in the existing homes. So this is not a new home. In a new home, yeah, we actually would recommend it, but we're not seeing it actually in theory in construction. But yeah, exactly, like a big old pipe that would go under the slab, and so it would help us to draw air from it. And then it would be connected to the suction pit. Yeah. We have that in our guidance, but we're not seeing it rolled out massively. And yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
So you have coffee break. And you
We
can
have
discuss
one more question.
one more question. Okay.
Bernard?
Priorities, Bernard.
Yes. Yes, and so, yeah, good question, Marta. Thank you. So this is one of our, so we are trying to make some changes in the building code. So right now we're just require this caps pipe. What we would like to see is a full passive system. Now in Canada, a full passive system would be straight up through the roof with limited bends, so that we actually would utilize that stack effect and possibly have. And there has been some research done showing that this actually does have some effectiveness even without the fan in reduction, although we haven't done research across our entire country. I know I installed a passive stack in my home and it freezes up in the winter. So there is moisture that's coming whisking up and then it freezes. So I've added a fan to mine because I just need that draw. But yeah, if we could just get it built right into the homes, it would at least stop this cap pipe from drawing the air in if it's not properly capped and sealed, right? So it would be better construction. So we are hoping that in 2025 that may come into the building code. We have submitted a recommendation, and so we're hoping that we can get some changes there.
Thank you.
Good, thanks.
So there are some more questions, but we have this World Cafe also later on, and I hope that all the speakers will take active part of that also. But this, I would say that it's the end of the online broadcast for this meeting. So we thank our members and friends from online. And now it's coffee, and during the coffee break, please have a look at our exhibitors also, with our paying members of the era. So you can look at their things. So I think we're falling a bit behind. I think we could start 11 with the World Cafe. So we need to organize the World Cafe. So when you get back, we will divide. We have different topics that we will discuss, like we did in Vienna. We'll get back with more information. But coffee, look at the exhibitors or the exhibition, maybe not the exhibitors, and be back at 11. Thank you.
Yes, at the break, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Huh?
So mute and video is not on.
Ah, okay.
Start video.
Oh, nice, very nice.
Nice. Good. So thank you for the organizers that we could have some extra time now for our ERA award ceremony, we could call it that. Or looking into the camera. Yes, thank you. So we didn't give a ERA award for 2021. This time we have two winners, we could say, of the ERA award. The ERA award is the members of ERA nominate to the executive committee of ERA, and executive committee decide or choose which one should get the prize. So, firstly, I would like to ask Matti Nesnal and Peter Bosset to have a seat in the chairs. It's not like the Grammy, so both will have some. I will start with the 2021 award, and the executive committee of ERA have decided to give Matti Nesnal prize. Matti, I mean, you will have a. You can defend yourself in a short presentation also. You come from the private sector, and actually, if I remember correctly, your company was more or less the first private company registered in the Czech Republic. Yeah. So it's huge, I would say. It's still going on. Of course, it's the research on the soil gas measurements and this Nesnal method of radon potential to think about. But for ERA as an organization is also more, it's important about the GARM conference that we host. And that is really been a driving force in the European radon community. So it's your work, your research, but also the conference. And until yesterday, you were also pretty good at bowling, curling. It was a tie, though. Yeah. So Matti showed us how to play curling in the conference. There are pictures of that also. Yeah. But so much can be said for all your work, for the community and for ERA. So I just want to say thank you, and I want to hand over a small certificate with prize. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So before you have your speech, I will just introduce the winner of 2022. Oh, looks pretty much the same for you. Who knows? So Peter Bosset, you have been the driving force also for the European Atlas of Natural Radiation.
One of them.
One of them, yeah. And it's a long list of publications and articles. I will not go through it all.
Really?
No. For us, it's important because you have always been extremely active and including in the European radon community, including different disciplines, but also young and new researchers and areas to look into. So for that, we are thankful. We also learned a lot during your presentations about statistical tools We can learn more, I guess. But that's been really interesting to add that into our community also. So thank you, and you will have a both prepared a presentation also. So thank you, Peter. And I would like to hand over the prize for 2022 era.
It's
It's a bit lack of color on it.
We need to save money.
Yeah.
Fair enough, fair enough.
So, first out, Patrik?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Matej.
You know how to do this?
Yeah.
Yes. I will take your show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have congratulations from Tanya Perko.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
What's that? Between that's the screen is house.
Okay.
Camera showing us not the stick.
Yes. it would be.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I really appreciate your choice of ERA and the ERA award. It's a great honor for me, and at the same time, it's always a pleasure for me to be with all of you. And as I have this opportunity, I would like to mention several highlights, or because I started with Radon in 1990 and I had to learn a lot. So very briefly, what I have learned, what is from my point of view really important or almost necessary. Or as I'm older and older, I can also maybe make some advice for young radon scientists. So I will begin with the sentence, be always enthusiastic. These are the pictures from our Radon International Intercomparison measurements. But what I would like to mention here is connected with Professor Antoine Keys, whom you can see at both pictures. When we organized the first Radon workshop in 1992 in Prague, we were sitting with Ivan Barmet at the registration at the time at Barandov, and we received a call from the chief of immigration police at the airport. And he told us that, hey, there is a guy here, and he told us he is a Professor Antoine Keys from Luxembourg, but he came only with his identity card and he wants to visit your Radon workshop. Because Professor Antoine Keys forgot in 1992 that we are not already in Europe. We joined Europe after 2000, etc. It was really closed after the change in 1999. So what to do now? We began and we tried to call, because Luxembourg embassy is not in Prague, so we were successful and find out the number of the Belgian embassy, and we called Belgian ambassador if he could help him or us, etc. And it was Sunday evening or something like that, and he was absolutely angry. I will do nothing for him, and he was only interested when we find his telephone number. It was the only question to us. So then we decided with Ivan, and we went to the airport, and we tried to explain to the chief of the immigration police, please, this is the main professor of Luxembourg University. He is so deep in science that he forgot that we are not already in Europe. So how can we arrange this situation? And finally he said, okay, so when you will promise me that you personally, you will come back with him when I will be at the office again. So, okay, I will let him go. We cannot certainly go through normal ways at the airport, but he went with us through some secret parts of the airport, and Antoine Keys could visit our workshop. So Antoine was enthusiastic, the chief of the immigration police was enthusiastic, we were enthusiastic, and I think that it's important. Certainly it was between the 11th of September, etc., between terrorist attacks and etc., but still, I think it's important. The second one, face the challenges. Yeah, I know that now I'm older, but it's me. It's my brother. And I think Martin, this award is also for you. And this is a picture when we were for the first time in the field trying to sample the soil gas. It's, if I remember well, in June 1990, we prepared fantastic equipment. We took a bottle of champagne. We began with the champagne. Then we tried to start with the sampling, and it was impossible. So we had to return to the lab and to prepare something different, and so on. Basically, the main idea was okay, but we at that time used not the lost tip which remain in the soil, but we try not to lose the tip. So it was connected with a wire. And briefly, it was impossible. Yeah, it was not a good way. So then we returned after 2-3 days to the field, and we were successful, and we started our campaign. Up to now, I think that, for example, me personally, I collected about 200 something plus minus 200,000 of soil gas samples for soil gas radon concentration measurements. Our firm, more than 400,000 samples. But yes, again, each day you can find out that something is wrong, or you should think about it, etc. So what's important, face the challenges. Sorry. Communicate. Yeah, when I was young, it was I loved math and then physics, etc. So it was, yeah, I see Pythagoras equation, etc. Laplace then when I was the high school and so on. So now I can be proud. I have, or we have with Martin, there's no brother, radon potential equation. And I think that it was also important because we were successful with communication. When we prepared the uniform methods for soil gas radon concentration measurements, for permeability measurements, and for radon potential assessment, that the communication between people from various countries in Europe, but not only in Europe, but also in US and Canada, was important, and that could go through the borders, and very often this precaution and radon potential is used in Spain, in various countries all over the world. And the last one, enjoy each minute with your radon friends, radon rangers, I call very often, or because I like Himalaya, we spent a lot of holidays in Himalaya or in Nordic countries. This year, for example, at Senja, north from Lofoten, and so on. So, because I try to be all the time optimistic, and I think it's also important really to enjoy the life, your professional life, your private life, and be happy if possible. Certainly we have to face not only the challenges, but the situation by Putin, etc. Yeah, that's the life. And the last picture, it was also mentioned that we organized a garden workshop. So it's a pleasure to invite you to the next one. It will be the 16th International Workshop on the geological aspects of radon risk mapping, which will be held again in September next year, from the 19th to 21st of September in Prague. And this time we will connect it not only with international soil gas radon concentration measurements, but also with permeability intercomparison measurements at radon reference sites. And I believe and I hope we will connect it again with caring, so you will be better and better. Thank you very much, and it's your.
Peter.
Right.
Right.
Yes. Thank you very much, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're not too tired when after this lunch, because it was really good lunch, wasn't it? When I was invited, this was only less than 2 weeks ago, wasn't it? Something like this, or 10 days ago. It was a little bit very fast. And so I was wondering what I should present, because they told me I should present a little bit. So I was wondering what I should present. So I could have done something, 15 minutes of plain mathematics, which everybody likes this, I know this, would be good fine. But in the end, I decided for something more serious. So which you're going to see here now. The title speaks for itself, I would say. And as you know, probably know, most of you know, I'm now retired, proudly retired from the BFS. So I'm not allowed to call myself anymore BFS. Sorry?
But you still have Germany.
No, I corrected it. So which it works, does not. Does not work, sorry. All right. Yes. Thanks. Yeah. I thought I just started with some historical review, how it all started. This was in the late 1990s. I don't really remember the exact year. I was at the University of Salzburg at the time. And we got the project about analysis of survey data, Austrian survey data, because probably you know that Austria had a very good survey. Actually, at the time, this was the UNRAP, so-called. This was a really very expensive thing, actually, very well done also. And there were a lot of follow-up projects, and one of these was this one. But at the time, we were a little bit not so amused about this because it's money, of course, if we get this project, and that's why we accepted it. But everybody saw this Radon is boring with a dead dog, nothing, So by part of it's money, So this we made a report. This was delivered 2002, and this is the title of the report. So, but when I start working on it, I made this research and played with the data because we got data, and then I found not so boring actually. It's quite interesting. So you can play with this. It's good fun in a way, So good data. And the good thing with this project was there were no specifications what we should analyze. So we could do what we want. I think this doesn't exist in our times anymore, such thing, But at that time, at least in Austria, it was very liberal. So you got the project and you could do what you want. And we did. And what I did actually, I divided this into spatial and temporal analysis and tried to use, because I'm interested in this mathematical stuff, as you know, I tried to use new methods, which were new at the time, not anymore, but at the time they were new, more or less new. And I tried to use this, but will not go into detail now. The next was that I was engaged at the JSC in ISPA, as you know. Actually, the reason why they wanted me was the Chernobyl mapping, actually, because I got some experience with the mapping. This was not Radon at the time, but the Chernobyl. And so they engaged me there, but there we started with this Atlas project. You all know the big Atlas. And this was started in 2005 or 6 or something like this there, and then continued by Valeria, then by Giorgio Tonelli, and now you have this big book. And then later, the BFS engaged me. And what I did is this radon mapping statistical methodology, I don't want to explain, this. So a lot of BSS implementation, which was a lot of work and still is actually. And I'm really grateful to these institutions because they not only paid me, but allowed me good time actually. So, speaking from today's perspective, why is radon interesting actually? Why is it? And the keyword to this is my personal view. Actually, this is the complexity. It's a paramount example for a complex system. It's a really complex system, and people say if you can model radon, you can model everything. It's almost true. It's very multidisciplinary. You have to know about geology, about sociology, about everything, more or less. And I mean, I like this graph actually. On the left-hand side, you see this was the original graph, which was started in 2000 something. And then later on in 2018, Mirek Yanikon, you know him, he's in Japan, I was there at the time. So we decided that it's too simple, we have to make it more complex actually to reflect complexity. So, and this was our draft actually, which we sent to Georgia at the time. She was really, really amused about it. And then in the end, she converted it into something more civilized, which is on the right-hand side. This is what it is in the atlas. I mean, to me, what is interesting about this is not the details, of course, you know, so because, but it visualizes the complexity of the system. This is the point of this graph. To visualize the complexity, which is the challenge of radon work, is the complexity of the system. And this is what I find interesting. I mean, of course, apart, as I say in this footnote, apart from scientific fun, it's relevant because of the health issues. This goes without saying, of course. You know? But although this part is the important part, practically important, but it's not what interests me so much. What I'm more or less more interested in, it's also well known from my presentations and articles, is this more conceptual part and theoretical part of it. So now 25 years later, so just to make a big jump, there are still badly understood and unresolved problems. Huh? And the work will not run out, apparently. So that's why we are here, apparently. And this dead dog, allegedly dead dog, is quite alive, actually. It's not at all dead. And the methodology has greatly evolved since we started with this. So for example, just as one example, this artificial intelligence machine learnings seem very, very important and particularly capable to deal with such complex and high-dimensional situations. So this seems, at the moment at least, who knows what is in another 25 years, but at the moment at least, it seems this is the methodology of choice. And fortunately, the BFS has one of the champions of this methodology is Eric, of course, you know, so we are in the OV, X3, so to say, in the pleasant situation that we have the knowledge, you know, about this and the understanding how it works. But still, there are some more esoteric questions, which I am very much interested, as you know. This is for example, just two examples here. This is the multifractional nature of radon distribution patterns. This is something which has not been, Zora is laughing, of course. She's also interested in this field. But this is something which has not really been resolved. We know this, but we don't know why. We have no, this is not really well explained, but it's for those people who know about this mathematical background, it is astonishing somehow, it's amazing. Or also, you know, and then we also work, this is something which I largely do together with Mirek again, because we have this radon time series, we do this time series analysis. And there are a lot of questions, open questions about this time series analysis of radon, again, because it's a product of generated by so many different factors which interact and are, so it's a typical, also a temporally complex system. And this makes the time series analysis of radon so complicated, and the time analysis, we have now almost 20 years or 15 years of time series in this institute in Chiba, and we still do not, we are not really able to model it properly. I mean, more or less we can, but not really in detail, which is challenging. This is something which we, in particular, and this is also true for spatial analysis, is the occurrence of extremes. Because you all know there are sometimes you have these extremes, radon extremes, and it's difficult to explain them and to model them, because usually models, whatever you use, are smoothing very much, and they're cutting away the extremes. Why? I mean, we know why the models do it, but we do not know why they occur in nature actually, and what is the physical generating mechanism. This is a little bit enigmatic still. And so this is what continues to interest me, in fact. Then there's another pleasant, it's just completely different, another pleasant effect of radon, because it's radiologically significant. It has become a public issue for good reasons, of course, for bad reasons, if you like. And the administrations, decision makers, politicians, legislators have to deal with it whether they like it or not. Normally they don't. So this has a great enormous potential actually. So we can give those people good headaches. I mean, this is I'm speaking from experience. And most of you actually know this, have had the same experience, maybe. So if you are a little bit into this, then you can have good fun with it. So this is and I just give one short example how to annoy legislators. And I think this is my feeling, this will be on the table for a time now. Because, you know, this is a little bit more technical, excuse me, but it's short. We have the requirement to define these radon priority areas, you know this. And this is a very important part in the PSS, you know that. And this is happening to this radon potential area, radon priority area maps. So, and this was the toughest part of the negotiations in many instances. Maybe you had similar experience. How to define it and which part would be priority areas and which not. And so there was a lot of negotiations, quite hot negotiations. But normally, it is defined as a zone of enhanced radon hazard. Hazard is important word in this case. For example, it's a map of indoor concentrations or geogenic radon potential or something. And then you classify them and you get the zones which are priority and not priority. Now, what is hazard? Hazard is the physical cause. But hazard is different from risk. Yes? Hazard, risk is defined as the hazard times vulnerability times exposure. Hazard exists also in unpopulated areas. So radon hazard is also on the moon or somewhere, or in the South Pole or whatever. You know? The vulnerability are the factors which influence how the hazard becomes efficient, like building properties and behavior of people and so on, floor level and so on. And exposure is the presence of people who can be affected. If there are no people who can be affected, the hazard is still there, but no risk, because nobody is there who can be affected. All right? If the target of radon policy is reducing the detriment generated by radon, which is also said in the BSS in this famous NX 18, there's one clausula which says that the target is reducing the lung cancer incidence, then the criterion must be the distribution of risk and not of the hazard, actually. Right? So now the risk maps, obviously, because this is how it is defined, look differently from hazard maps. So the derived priority maps are also look different. I'll give an example in the next slide. So the future task, I think, will be to develop risk-based concept of radon priority areas and corresponding maps instead of hazard-only maps. I am not saying that hazard maps are not important. They are important because the individual risk is proportional to the hazard, the individual risk, but not the collective risk which measures the detriment of the society. This is the collective risk. And the collective risk maps look differently. So the question, I mean, this is in the beginning of this. So this is really still open. And the most complicated thing will be how to sell this argument to administrations. I am sure, this will be not so easy. So good luck for the younger ones. So just as an example, on the left hand, you have the hazard plus vulnerability map. So this is the probability to be above 300 becquerel per cubic meter. This is a typical hazard map. And on the right hand side, you see the distribution of residential buildings with concentration above referent level, which is a risk map, right? And they look completely differently. Yes? And it has also been shown, this was Eric's work mainly, that confining radon abatement measures to hazard type radon priority areas has very little effect on the target, which is reducing the entitlement. Practically no one has been calculated more or less. So keep this in mind. Conclusion. As I have shown, radon is not interesting. No. But due to its radiological significance, we can always find pretext for new interesting projects, actually. Yes. There's lots of interesting projects, and this is possible only because it's radiologically significant. Otherwise, nobody would give us projects, of course. Then if for the anarchists among us, it's political fights, it's good fun also. The work will certainly not run out for generations of radon, so this is a good message. So for the younger ones, you will not be unemployed if you're imaginative enough to create new projects, of course. So this is just an appendix, This was, by the way, this was the title picture of this. You remember the report which I had in the first slide, which we gave to the minister, to the Austrian minister. This was the title page. So, again, thank you so much for the ERA award, because this is not nothing. This is something, because ERA is an important player, really. So this is getting this reward. This is something which counts. Well. Thank you.
Yeah, we can take that. Yeah.
Stop share.
Were present at the historical moment. It was the shortest presentation of people which I have ever had.
So thank you very much for the presentations, and once more thank you for being here. And now it's really the end of the ERA workshop. Just to mention, I will mention this as last thing. We have two not that young members, older maybe. No? We also have the youngest member of ERA here today. It's a 12-year-old Elish. Yeah. Oh, you don't? Yeah. Oh, please. So applaud. I think it's a good sign that we have some fresh blood coming in. So thank you for joining ERA, and looking forward to meet you in all the conferences, workshops. Thank you. That's it. And now it's rooms meeting.
Oh, we need to take some pictures.